Welcome to the EdgeStream, the edgiest live show I know. The following show is a satire, and all characters appearing are fictitious in nature. Any resemblance to real persons living or dead are purely coincidental. Narcs are not welcome. Viewer suicide is advised.
I heard the fuck boys they wanna. I finished up I guess the niggas heard that I'm edgy. I guess they all heard that I'm edgy.
You edgy. You're now tuned in to the edgiest guy I know.
Let's go! Welcome back, everybody. It's good to be back. Another Tuesday night, another EdgeStream. I'm here with my co-host tonight. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Edgy. Glad to be here as always.
Awesome. Audio coming in good. We got our mystery co-host.
Yeah, it's coming in crystal clear.
You do not need to know who this guy is. He lurks among the shadows, but he is a great co-host. He has some very insightful opinions and some great banter. So we'll be with mystery co-host here tonight. It's good to see everybody in the chat. Good to see you, Ferryman, Quick Dubs, Man Bear Pig, Plaid Piper. Oh, what the? Yo, are you there?
Yeah.
Do you see this?
Yeah. What the fuck? We got shut down.
Yo, okay, let's see what this policy violation is.
What?
Oh, it's a copyright note. Okay, so then it's over. Okay, I get it. Okay, it was a music thing. Are we back? Are we back? I think we're back. Press B for back. Okay, we'll see what the chat has to say in just a second. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I did copyright check that song before, and it didn't block me when I uploaded it, but now I guess it is blocking me. So, yes, like Ferryman said, I do think that they were just targeting the white man. Once they saw my face and they saw they had a reason to take me down, they went with it. And I'm going to go with that, okay? They're trying to take the white man down.
It was what they call reverse racism.
Yes, exactly. Reverse racism. It happens. It's a thing, man. But anyways, enough monkeying around with, our oppression over here. We have a lot to talk about today. The Roe v. Wade, a leak from the Supreme Court. That's a big one. Hoes are mad. It is true. The word on the street is that hoes are mad. They are absolutely seething. They're doing all the things that right-wing people don't even dare to do, or else we will be called domestic terrorists. So I'm holding my breath, hoping that maybe the same kind of ruling will come down upon these baby killers, but for some reason I don't think that is exactly going to happen. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I don't really know what to take from what's happened so far. I mean, so far it's just been a bunch of seething and crying and whining and screeching, but we'll see what happens with this ruling. But yeah, no, interesting shit for sure. It's always fun though to see them just blow up. I mean, this is fucking great.
Oh yeah, I don't know if it's better that they're mobilizing their base or that they're absolutely seething and just making fools of themselves, which is mobilizing our base. I don't even know what a win is at this point anymore. Like, everything is so convoluted and so fucking chaotic. So, we'll have to see. Like, what is the long game? What is the long run? And how do we win in the long run? It's a good question.
Oh, Ferryman with a good one here. He says, if you're right wing, your speech is violence. If you're left wing, your violence is speech. The left is hypocrisy personified. Yeah, absolutely, dude.
That is so true. Yes. Fucking, it's just completely inverted, and the standards are just stacked against you. And that's something that I thought about, or I watched a stream the other day where I was saying how conservatives, they always whine and cry about how, the left is hypocritical, especially Ben Shapiro, who I just watched his response to the 2000 Mules documentary, which we'll get into, which, like, easily proves how there was tons of voting fraud in the 2020 election. But Ben Shapiro and all these conservative Inc. people like Dennis Prager, Charlie Kirk, Larry Elder, their big thing is that, oh, this is a hypocrisy all the time, it's just the left, the Democrats not playing by their own rules. Well, that's the thing. They don't play that by their own rules. You should have figured that out by now.
The Democrats are the real racists.
Exactly. And, if you're bitching at people with power about how they're abusing that power and being hypocritical, it doesn't really do that much if they don't have to answer to your set of values. So maybe something else is in order, and who knows what that could be. Maybe we'll have to exhaust those options and figure out what it really is. Now, Tyler Russell in the chat, he said, did you see those groypers out front of the New York church? The one with the flat black meth head lady yelling at them? Yes, I think I have. Oh, no, I've seen the guy with the Canada First hat out front of the church. Now, it's crazy that these people are going out and confronting every kind of building, institution, or home of the Supreme Court justices, like Clarence Thomas, Brad Kavanaugh, and all of these people. And that is completely cheered on by the left when you have people like Jeremy McKenzie, who goes out and protests in front of the home of, who was it again?
Dr. Strang.
Yeah, Dr. Strang, because they're the only province that is still masking children. And the media completely covers up the fact that that's what he was actually there protesting, with a bunch of other concerned moms. Doesn't leave in that detail at all to give proper context. And then he is considered like a new terrorist, a criminal, given criminal charges, and the media completely leaves out omits the fact that they were doing that because they were masking children past anybody else in the country was.
Yeah, and then you'll get some boomer on Facebook who sees the news article about that, and she'll be like, okay, I don't agree with all this COVID stuff either, but leave people's families out of it. You gotta leave people's families alone. You can't be messing with people's families. I mean, come on. Like, as if it's like you're breaching some sort of horrible thing by standing outside on the fucking road outside of the guy's house, pointing out how fucked he is for doing that. And with Dr. Strang, too, it was a little bit more nuanced than just not allowing the kids to go back to school. He at first said that they were going to remove mask mandates for kids in schools. And then he, like, on the Friday, when it was supposed to be the Monday that it went away, he changed his mind on the fucking Friday. So, like, that was fucking outrageous. He deserved to have people fucking show up at his house and protest that shit. So, yeah, and then, the media and the boomers are just like, these politicians are an untouchable class. You can't fuck with them.
Well, that's a perfect segue into this, because I don't think that they got the memo that protesting outside a politician's house is good. So maybe the federal and provincial government in New Brunswick didn't get the memo that peaceful protests outside of I'm getting bombarded by MS.
You got ad raped.
I got ad raped. No, this is what okay, I think I'm good now. Yeah, peaceful protests outside Supreme Court justices' homes is good. It's good. Oh, sorry, I didn't know that it was good.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, and they have 10 ways till Sunday on why it was so good, right?
It's people speaking truth to power, but only when it's our side.
Exactly. Okay, I had some highlights over here. Let's get them up. But I think I'm still getting ad raped by MSNBC, and they won't let me take... Okay.
$3.99 a month?
Okay, well, anyways, they say this is wrong, stupid, potentially dangerous, and politically counterproductive. And you know what? I could see why they might think that, because this is mob rule against people. But where was this outcry when they were coming after literal citizens like the BLM crowd with Kyle Rittenhouse? Then two
Yeah.
boomer parents, two like a dad and a mom, come out with just a simple pistol and something else, and then they get the full brunt of the law against them. Private citizens who literally had nothing to do with anything.
Oh, you remember, dude, during 2020, that was such a shit show. There was fucking black groups going through neighborhoods. And then if they saw a white person's house, they would start fucking going crazy at them, like screaming at them and like
Oh
saying all
yeah.
of this crazy shit. Like it was bonkers, man. Like they were just fucking like normal people that had nothing to do with it. People would be in their windows and a mob would walk by. Look, it's a fucking whitey. Look, let's go and protest him now. Like as if he had anything to do with what happened. Like
Exactly. That's why all these businesses had like BLM signs outside of their businesses to say, "We support BLM. Please
yeah,
don't
please
destroy
don't
our business."
destroy our
Yeah.
shit.
Black-owned business. That's what I would do if I was in that area. Black-owned
Yeah,
business.
black trans woman owned business.
Yeah, and then just stand in the window wearing blackface. Like, hey, y'all ain't gonna do that shit to me, are you? Here's another example of just how the shit works, the mob rule. Like, remember the Ahmed Arbery verdict? Where, like, literally everybody within, like, a 1 kilometer radius of this happening got arrested for murder? Yeah. So they tried to make a citizen's arrest. It went wrong because he tried to pull the gun out of the guy's hands. Maybe they shouldn't have been chasing after him. Probably wasn't a good idea. Probably should just let the jogger jog away and go on his the rest of his epic hike that he goes on through
Residential
abandoned
neighborhoods.
residential neighborhoods and abandoned houses multiple times in the past few months. Uh, but now during the verdict, you had all these Black Panthers outside of the courtroom, and you had the Kyle Rittenhouse thing, which got blown up, and there were all the eyes on it, but there weren't very many eyes on the Ahmaud Arbery case. And then when 3 people got charged with murder, one of them just joined in randomly, like at the whim of, hey, we're going to catch this criminal. So then he got in his car and helped within the pursuit. And then this all happened, and now he's in jail, charged with murder as well. And they made sure that they didn't get away with it, these Black Panthers, by going out and intimidating everybody in front of the court. Now, is this the same thing, the kind of mob rule that the Democrats are going to instill in people in order to get what they want when it comes to something like Roe v. Wade?
Probably, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, hey, they're the ones who are winning, so who are we to bitch about it, you know? I just know that if you had a bunch of Diagolonians or a bunch of Canada Firsters out front of courtrooms, you know, trying to show support for the people that we want to win that case, that they would call this domestic terrorism. I think when it came to, I think it was in Washington with Virginia, with Glenn Youngkin and all the parents who didn't want critical race theory, and especially the LGBTQ plus and transgender stuff being taught in their schools, that when these parents came to complain, that they labeled them domestic terrorists because they got a bit too uppity. So it seems like more
sure.
of rules for thee, but not for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to let you know, Edgy, we got 8 minutes left on the Zoom call before it dicks me out of here. So
Oh,
just
shit.
keep that in mind.
Okay, yeah. How about we do that right now?
All right.
I don't know why Zoom is now doing this, but yeah.
It's because their stock dropped 50%, so they need to make some more revenue.
Okay, well, I'm going to start a new Zoom call here.
All right.
All right, I'm just setting up a new Zoom meeting because apparently Zoom is kicking people out of my conversations now, so I might need to get a new method in order to bring people in here. There we go. But yeah, this Roe v. Wade stuff. Let's see what people are saying in the chat. Ferryman's told us saying, guys, he was just looking at the electrical components on construction machinery. Definitely not trying to hotwire it. Yeah, I think he's talking about Ahmed Arbery and his jogs into homes under construction that he did about 4 or 5 times, caught on camera before these guys went on to do their citizen's arrest on him. Pretty ill-advised, you know. I don't think that you should take the law into your hands like that, but
Yo.
apparently the cops weren't willing to do that. Hey, and we got our guest co-host back, and I'm just going to make sure you could hear my audio. There you go. All right, sweet, and we're back. Okay, and yeah, we're also going to talk about the 2000 Mules documentary and the mass immigration that's been coming into the United States ever since the Biden administration took power. And it's actually astronomical. It's going to absolutely wreak havoc. I don't think people understand how bad it's going to be if what he's doing continues. I think even the Democrats are going to push back against it because it's so insane. But we'll have to see, you know. They still have Trump derangement syndrome, and with him coming back potentially, especially back on Twitter, if Elon Musk allows this to happen like he says it's going to happen, or he's inviting Trump back on. Trump says he's not going to come back on, but I highly doubt that.
Yeah, fucking bullshit. Dude, Trump's only saying that because, like, so many people around him have invested so much fucking money in Truth Social, but, like, he can't help himself. I guarantee, like,
Right.
He'll get invited back, he'll say no, and then, like, a month or 2 later, he'll be back on Twitter.
Oh, for sure.
Especially around
Yeah.
midterms. Like, dude, he's gonna be back before midterms. I guarantee it.
Truth Social. Like, I don't even know anything about it yet. I heard that they're kind of letting people on, but it's not even an app for Android yet, and they're on the App Store. So what happens when they start getting censored by the App Store, when like all these special interest groups start pressuring the App Store to censor everything, like they're even doing to people on Telegram? It's just not going to work. Well, Tyler Russell is saying that what these people were doing outside of the Supreme Court justices' houses is actually illegal. It's literally illegal. But what Jeremy was doing was completely illegal. And he says it's not even the legality that matters, which is true because, as we're saying, the left thinks that anything the right does when it comes to protesting is violence, but their violence is protesting. So it's just the complete hypocrisy that they have. But yeah, what Jeremy was doing, they had to make it illegal as quickly as possible, just completely bypassing all the legislative practices that they have to actually do in order to get a law into legislation. They just said, oh, well, we need to do this right away. It's like they're using the Emergency Act when it comes to anything to do with Diagolon or anything that might actually be a threat to their so-called democracy. Because this is actually protesting, like they said. It's good that people are coming and protesting out in front of people's houses.
Yeah, and like the whole point that drives me nuts with this is when, like, Trudeau's like, well, we understand people's right to protest, but, and it's like, no, there is no but. Like, the whole idea of a protest is to get some shit done, man. It's to get people to change. It's, you know, like, people used to protest in the union days to get, like, better workers' rights. People protested for a million things to, like, change the government or, like, to get the government to stop doing something they were doing. The idea of protesting is not like you just go and show up, you do your little protest, and then you waddle back home and nothing happens and nothing changes. Like, no, fuck that. You know, fuck that, dude. What the hell? People have the right to protest, but, you know, there's limits to this, and you know they were obstructing critical infrastructure. Like the amount of cope they came up with for the trucker
Right.
convoy was insane.
Yeah, and of course you have to factor in how much has other protests that they actually advocate for messed with critical infrastructure and all this stuff. Once again, we're crying into the wind. Ferryman's Toll is saying Roe v. Wade is meant to drive a wedge between the moderates flocking to the right and the traditional right wing. Changed my mind. What do you think about that?
I definitely agree with that. In my circle of friends, we were kind of talking about that when it first happened, and one of my buddies said to me that he thinks this is just a midterm ploy, basically, by the Democrats to at least expose this reading to try to drum up some controversy, because they're losing so bad right now, especially with all of the inflation and bad economic news and all the shit that's going on in the world. The Democrats are looking at it like getting absolutely butt fucked. So they need some sort of issue to try to drum up some sort of support. And the abortion issue is the one that they're ultimately going with this time around. I'm surprised it wasn't like another BLM kind of situation, but this also isn't surprising because unfortunately abortion is highly accepted, particularly among females and younger people. So I definitely think that they're just trying to throw it out there as kind of an issue to garner back support from those independents who are, pro-abortion, because they're getting butt fucked by these, especially the inflation.
Yeah.
The inflation's insane, dude. And it's not fucking 10% or whatever the hell the number is that they're saying. It's way higher. And everyone knows it. And everyone's feeling the costs of inflation, the costs of these tariffs on Russia. And ultimately, people care more about their money.
Putin that did it.
Right. Yeah. The cope there is unreal. But, when people are having to pay way more for everything that they're used to buying, like, fuel, food, housing, things like that, people are going to start to get pissed off. And then who's in charge? It's the Democrats that are in charge. So then they're like, okay, well, fuck these guys. Like even people that are apolitical are like, okay, fuck Joe Biden, man. Like,
so then you're saying it's kind of like a psyop in a sense. But how would it be a psyop if the Republicans, like the 5 justices who are lean Republican, are the ones who voted on it? Are you saying?
I don't think that the actual voting on it. I mean, it could be if I'm going to go full Q-tard, but I'm more so just talking about the leak, like the fact that it was leaked now. Yeah. Why now? Why did this get leaked?
Because it started in February, right?
Well, there was opportunities for people throughout history, like for past fucking 20 years, to leak, very critical, bills that the Supreme Court, or not bills, I shouldn't say that, cases that the Supreme Court was going to rule on that would change things. Like, for example, the gay marriage one, that was never leaked, right? Tons of different ones where like they were dealing with, illegal immigration or gun rights and things like that. Those were never leaked before, but now this one was leaked. And why was this one leaked? And I personally feel like the timing of it is very suspect, because the Democrats are losing so much right now that they needed something to drum up some sort of enthusiasm and support. Because at the end of the day, Joe Biden, nobody likes him. Even the Democrats, you talk to somebody who's like a hardcore liberal, no one's enthused by Joe Biden. He's like clearly fucking retarded.
Right. Oh, no, yeah, I can imagine that. I think, maybe the leak has something to do with that. It could just be that one of the Democrat Supreme Court justices, they gave it to, I hear that there's some information surrounding one of the people that work for them. They have connections to people who would want this leaked. So, it could be partly that, like the powers that be want to cause this chaos, or they just want to, they want to stop this from happening because they think baby killing is the ultimate imperative that they must fight for. But even then, Roe v. Wade, from what I've been looking into, it's not even based off of anything really legally. It's just something that people accepted, but the legislation behind it never really had any merit to it. It was very weakly worded. It had no basis in the Constitution, and you know how laws can be instilled based on a faulty interpretation of what the Constitution meant, right? So it seems like these 5 justices, that they're overturning it based on that and wanting to give it the power back to the states, right? So it's hilarious that this is not even banning abortion. It's just giving states the ability to it. And you could even go to other states and get your abortion if you really needed to. right? If
Yeah,
it matters so much that you need to kill a baby in order to not have like the rest of your life bogged down by this decision that you made, that this life that you created within you, that you can't even go to another state or figure this out on your own, and you need like abortion on demand and all this stuff. It just seems absolutely crazy. I personally think that we need to stop abortion at uh, any at any point of it, right? Because you're killing a human life. Now, I don't know what you think about it morally. I assume that you're Christian or Catholic and that you have a
yeah,
hardcore stance on that. What would your
yeah.
stance be on?
I'm pretty extreme on it. Like personally, in an ideal world, right? I would like to see no abortion. But when I get into these arguments with people, they always like to bring up these like misnomer,
Right.
exceptions, these like outliers. Like, well, what if she was raped, and what if it was like gonna kill the mother, and blah 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 blah. And if like we're talking politically and pragmatically, where I'm trying to get abortion banned generally, I would be like, okay, we'll make an exception. But if I'm like, in my ideal world, no, I don't think anyone should ever have an abortion, because my problem with abortion is pregnancy is the consequence for a woman of having sex. That's like what it is. It's a natural consequence. It's not like something that's applied to you by the state. It's not something that like, is applied to you by your family. It's like, no, it's like biologically, there's a consequence to having sex, right? And if somebody has sex and then all of a sudden they change their mind and they don't want to have this fucking baby that they created because they chose to have sex, it's fucking murdering a baby, and you are the one responsible for that. And now you're taking it out on this baby. And then even with rape, like, I'll be honest, like, I know a girl who was the product of rape. Like, I went to high school with a girl, her mom was raped, and she had this kid. That girl is a nice girl. Does that girl deserve to be dead? Her life has no value. She doesn't deserve to be alive because her fucking mother was raped. Like, no, cheers to her mother for actually having the baby. And, in a country like Canada where abortion is readily available. And now that girl's like a really nice girl and she has a perfectly good life. She's fine. And then even with the babies who are going to potentially kill the mother, there's like an NHL player, I forget the guys, or maybe NFL. There's like a big sports player, and his mom and him did like a pro-life ad a few years ago. She was told by the doctors that she was going to die if she went through with the pregnancy. She did it anyways because she had strong pro-life beliefs. And now he's like perfectly fine, and he's in like a top sports league, and he's perfectly healthy and everything's good. So I think basing a law on these like rare exceptions, like, which like whenever I get into an argument with these kind of leftist people, they always bring up these rare exceptions, but we don't base the law on that. Like, we base the law on what happens most of the time. And unfortunately, most of the time, people are having sex outside of marriage where they're not planning to get pregnant, and they end up getting pregnant, whoopsie, and now they go and kill a fucking baby because they fucked up and because they were promiscuous and they made a mistake and they, chose to have sex. Like, no, dude, like the best way to not have to have an abortion is to be abstinent and not fucking have sex unless you want to have kids.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I have another question about that. Where do you think that the life actually begins? Do you think it begins at conception? Do you think contraception, plan B, is wrong? Do you think that maybe within the first couple of weeks, abortion may be permissible? Is there a specific time? Now, I think the Christian belief is that upon conception, right? So,
Yeah, so
is there like a moral line where something is more permissible along that spectrum, or is there a dead stop where this is murder over here and this is not murder? Because I think that some people will have the zealotry to say it's murder past conception, right?
yeah.
But does that really, do they really have that convictions upon that they're willing to take into action, right? Of course, you can't take into action. You can't go around like putting whores in fucking your own prison because they had abortions. Like, you murderers, I'm gonna imprison you in my own prison. I'm taking, I'm gonna give you the death penalty. We can't all do that, but do you know
Yeah.
what I mean by that? Like,
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. And on the contraception issue, I will say, like, I'm not a Catholic, and I know Catholics, a lot of extreme Catholics especially, still hold the stance. I think the Catholic Church generally abandoned their kind of principles on contraception. I think they used to be like very much against all contraception. Me personally, I'm a Christian. but I don't believe that like, people using a condom is like a, a terrible thing,
So
right?
my
Like,
dirty Doritos bag is good.
no,
It's
but ultimately, as a Christian too, I believe that sex is like, while it's not just for reproduction. Obviously, there's benefits as a person, and it's like love, when you love someone. But at the same time, I think that sex is a very important thing, and I don't think we should just use contraception so we can have cheap, easy sex with no consequences. And that's kind of what our society's done. Like using contraception, like my fucking parents used contraception for the first few years of their marriage, and like I know my parents were like literally virgins till marriage kind of people, but they didn't want to have kids right away because they had massive student loans, and they so like 4 years they were married and they didn't have any kids. You think that they weren't having sex? Like, I'm not fucking naive. I don't want to think about that, but I'm not naive, right? So of course the people use contraception, and I don't have a problem with that. But I do think that like when people have sex and then a baby is created, where like it actually happens, like
the conception. Then the conception.
I
Okay.
think when conception happens, that is now a human
So
life.
no heartbeat then. Like it's the conception before
there's
heartbeat.
those arguments to be made, but like it's kind of like,
okay.
It's going to have a heartbeat. It's going to become a human being, right? Like barring extremely rare circumstances.
Well, when I'm jerking off and I'm about to bust a nut, I got millions of potential motherfuckers who are gonna maybe have a heartbeat. There's a lot of potentiality in that. Okay.
And this is why I think we have to start like. This is
I'm
why
playing
I kind of
devil's advocate.
Small with some of these issues like abortion. Personally, I would like to see, and I'm talking like pragmatically where it could actually happen. I would like to see a ban on abortion where it's like once a mother knows she's pregnant, like like the type of stuff we basically have right now, where it's like 8 weeks. 10 weeks when they start getting the pregnancy test back and they know they're pregnant, they go have an abortion, up to 24 weeks, up to even some people are wanting fucking babies to be able to be aborted the day before they were going to be born, that kind of shit. That should never happen. And I'm a father. I've seen ultrasounds and stuff. When a little baby is like, 16, 17 weeks, you can tell that's a little human being in there. Okay. And I've seen some pictures of like aborted fetuses, man, and like it looks like a little fucking human being. Like you can't tell me that's not a human being. And it's
so you're saying that Martha Sanger, the Planned Parenthood lady, was not based by trying to pull eugenics?
No, Margaret Sanger was fucked.
Not based. Okay, she was a literal Nazi. She was too much for the white race, is what you're saying.
Margaret Sanger is an interesting one because I mean, like from a eugenics perspective, I mean, like there's arguments to be made, but like I don't agree with abortion, right? So
okay. Well, here's a funny picture. This chick who I guess is ostensibly protesting against the Roe v. Wade leak that came out. She said, "I wish my mom had aborted me." Now, I was working with some boomer this weekend that I don't know how this got brought up, but he's like, "Yeah, is it crazy all the things going on in the States? Yeah, there's this one girl who has a sign that says, 'I wish my mom had aborted me.'" And I was like, "Well, then you wouldn't be alive, you idiot." I was like, "Oh wow, what a great political perspective there. What a great, I think maybe the joke might have gotten over your head too, but yeah, no, I think this is just the nihilism that pervades this current culture now. And I think what this guy Orrin McIntyre had to say, when Jordan Peterson described progressivism as revenge against God for the crime of being, that was one of the truest things ever said. I think that's a pretty good point. I remember when Jordan Peterson was literally crying when he was saying this, and it was kind of funny. But yeah, it's like these people hate being, and this is a comical way of putting it, but yeah, they're just extreme nihilists, and people see themselves now as like in a theme, and like just as a plague upon existence when they are literally existence. Yeah. So I don't know what they are to do about it. Like people are just putting themselves in this position where they have no worth.
So I can guarantee you that this masked woman with the sign there, I guarantee she supports euthanasia as well. And I think she would even be so far as to say if somebody's mentally ill and they like want to choose assisted suicide, that they should be allowed such a right, you know? Like, I don't know, these people, like you said, they hate being alive. They have no God, right? So like they're just like lonely souls walking through existence, wandering through, I should say, and they have no purpose in life. They have no happiness. They're like anxious, depressed all the time. Like these are the typical leftists. Like they're just zombie people, and they have nothing to look forward to except like their shitty bullshit TV shows. And then eventually they realize that that doesn't give them any happiness too, and it's just like miserable. Like these people, I can't be around them too much because they're so, like you said, nihilistic and just what's the other word? There's another word. Shit. Angsty. Yeah, they have so much angst. Like they're, you know what I mean? And that's why BLM blew up so much. Was like there was so much angst amongst like the left, and then COVID happened and everyone was just so angst, like full of angst, and they were just boiling up, and then something happened where they could like snap and like go and rage at somebody, and it just exploded, you know? Like black people have been being killed by the police for a very long time, and it wasn't until George Floyd that it went that crazy. Like Ferguson was pretty bad, but this was
it was boiling over, and then, you know, I think the Floyd thing had a lot of help with all the nonprofit organizations, just like those nonprofits helped all those mules during the 2020 election. So they had all this angst building up from the constant media portrayal of what was going on, and then it came to a boiling point, and then they had the ignition to the fire, and it just blew up, right?
Yeah.
One thing that makes me sad about seeing that picture a little bit is it seems like a very like nice, potentially decent young American woman throwing up that sign saying that she doesn't have a will to exist, whether it's joking or not. You know, I think the point is made if you're supporting abortion like that. That there are plenty of people who do have a will to live, and they're willing to go through potentially deadly territories in order to get over into the American border. And I don't think that's a good thing. I don't want them there. I don't want them here in Canada. But that is what's happening, and these people do have a will to live. And Biden is giving them a will to want to come into the United States and take over. Take over these nihilistic people who don't see value in their own selves, or having their own children.
Replaced by the based Catholic Latins who just love life and just want to be in America.
Yeah. How would you explain that meme? Like no, okay, I don't know how to do that meme, but basically, once the Biden administration came into power, the illegal immigration rates have soared, as well as the amnesty that they're giving to these people. It's absolutely
bossing
insane.
Them around, man.
I did not know how bad it was until I saw this Jared Taylor video from American Renaissance about what they're doing with these illegal immigrants. So during the campaign, Biden was, rallying for illegal immigrants, basically. He denounced the border wall, as all Democrats do, really. Said that Trump was cruel and promised free Medicare for all the illegals. And if you see this graph here, I'll zoom in a bit on it. This shows, throughout the years, the number of migrant encounters at the Mexican border for the last 20 years. And, it had an all-time high back in March 2000. I don't know what was going on around then. But ever since Biden, on this red dot here, you've seen it's blasted right back up to that record high in 22 years, basically. And a migrant encounter entails that they apprehended somebody. They caught somebody, basically. So think about all the people who are not being caught coming over, considering how lax they are and how long that border is, right? And once you get caught, once you have a migrant encounter, the results are either immediate expulsion or apprehension, and then some kind of processing where they figure out what they're going to do with you. So as you could see here, ever since Biden came into power, usually you would get rid of them, but now, within just 6 months, basically, it went from 17% apprehensions to 17% expulsions. No, 83% expulsions to 47% expulsions. So it almost doubled how many of the percentage of these people are actually staying here and then applying to some kind of amnesty court. And of course, they're dying when they come over. And who has to deal with that? Of course, the people in the families and the children of the families that are coming in. And then you have to apply that much more resources, like with Border Patrol services and with the taxpayers' money. And of course, the people in charge of this, the head of Homeland Security, is talking very gleefully about how this number is rising, the amount of illegal immigrants that are being encountered with and actually staying here. And none of this takes into account the children that are there too, and the people who, like I said before, got away, which is probably even higher. I would suspect that all these people are getting through very easily, considering how many people are actually coming through. And this is the court backlog of the immigration court for whether they get to seek asylum or not. And all these numbers, all these graphs here are just the backlog. This is each one of these bars is a rising number. This is not like the amount per year or per month. This is a rising number that is just backlogging it. And then, of course, you have all the different special interest immigrants, as you might say, like the Afghans that came from our
I totally forgot they tried to hop on that plane. Man.
Yeah, that's kind of based, like the Virgin, the Chad jumps onto a plane and latches onto it to go overseas to get to America, versus the Virgin already in America and wishes that they were dead from abortion. Okay, that's the joke I was trying to say before. Yeah. The Chad.
I just always wonder what goes through their minds, like did he like hop on there and he's like, now I go to America?
Yeah, it's that easy. Like I want to live is that easy and dumb of a statement, but apparently Westerners are just inherently suicidal that they can't comprehend that. And of course, there's the Cameroonians. I have no idea about that. And the Haitians. And now the legal alien population in America is 16 million. It's like 0.5% of their population. No, that's like 5% of their population. What am I talking about?
No, not 5, but I think maybe. I think you were right the first time. Because there's 350 million people.
Yeah, and then 30 million people will be 10 out of 100, 1 out of 10. So like 5%.
Let me do the math.
Illegal aliens.
16 divided by 360, 4%. Yeah, you're right.
Right, and then of course the total net cost of illegal immigration has been more than $140 billion since 2013. Now, what do they say? Oh, we need these illegal immigrants. Like the libertarian powers that be will say, I think that's already kind of a oxymoron. Libertarian powers that be. Because they're against power, right? But the libertarian shill conservatives will say that, oh, it's we're getting cheap labor or whatever, if so they're contributing.
Yeah, they want Javier to cut their fucking grass.
Yeah, exactly, and they're they're getting paid less than minimum wage, so how could they be taking away from our society if that's what they're doing? But no, ultimately, they're obviously taking all these resources through healthcare and the total price that it costs for each legal immigrant that is there, or even any legal immigrant that is on welfare. Like, you're just bringing people in to add on to this debt? It's absolutely insane.
Well, and there's the whole economic argument for wages too, because like what happens when you bring in people like that are going to work for way less, maybe say it's like half, right? Say an American's going to work for like $14 an hour as a landscaper, and a Mexican will do it for 7, right? That fucks the Americans, because now their cost of labor goes down because they're having to compete against people who will work for $7 an hour. So then now the Americans making $10 an hour instead of 14, when they could be making 14, because they have to compete with these Mexicans. And then the Mexican people, or the Latin Americans who come up and do these jobs, they're also not bound to labor laws. So they can work 60, 70, 80 hours a week, whereas an American can only work 40 before like their employer would have to give them overtime pay and all that kind of shit. There's no benefits involved with these jobs. Like, it's the same thing we have with here in Canada with our migrant workers who work on farms and stuff like that. Like, Canadians basically can't work on farms because the wages are so low that you wouldn't be able to survive. Whereas they just hire migrants, they bring them up, and those people are making like $8 an hour, working 60 to 80-hour weeks, being treated like fucking slaves, but their money is worth so much more back home that they can be paid, $600, $700 every 2 weeks. And that's like a lot of money for them to send back home, and then their families can survive. But it fucks the Canadians who are here, who maybe there's some people that like all they can do is farm work. Now those people are fucked because they used to be making $25 an hour equivalent back in the 60s. Now they're making fucking minimum wage. So they're fucked.
Is it raising our GDP though? Or GDPs?
Probably. It probably is. And
well, that's all that matters. We got to boost that economy up at all costs. I think that's what really matters, right? So apparently, this is the projections for what this will entail in the future. Oh. You have to literally like cartoon draw with a crayon this number that's going all the way up, man. 540,000 migrant encounters will be the future of it, including 18,000 migrants getting in and staying in per month. Or no, it's 18,000 migrant encounters at the border per day, equaling 540,000 migrant encounters, where, what is it? You go up here, how many of these people are being let in per encounter? Oh, so about half of them are going to get let in.
250,000 people a fucking month.
Oh my goodness. Oh, they are fucked and we are fucked because, America is supposed to be based compared to Canada, but... Oh, and of course Kamala Harris has the answer, because even the Democrats are pushing back against this. Like, this is going to be fucked. And, they're going to lose ground because of how fucked this is going to be. This is not only just legal immigration, this is illegal immigration, which even normie conservatives understand that this is bad. Right? Normie Republicans in the United States, they understand that that's bad. So she's saying that she's going to... She has a way to root it out, and she's going to solve corruption, violence, and poverty, and the lack of economic opportunity. Oh, and the lack of climate adaptation and climate resilience, and the lack of good governance in all these third world countries.
Yeah, man, people from Colombia are moving up to the United States because of the lack of climate adaptation and climate resilience. They're like, yo, we live in like the nicest place ever on the equator. We're going to move up to America because of climate change.
Like, this is like the most hilarious globo homo comment I've ever... I'm surprised that she's not going to solve like LGBTQ plus rights.
Yeah.
In El Salvador, where they're like fucking carving in gang tattoos into each other's backs with knives and shit. Like, oh, This is the funniest thing I've seen, man. Absolutely incredible. So
Just to
there
let you
you
know, we
have it.
got 5 minutes and 35 seconds left on this Zoom call.
Okay, well, I'll just wait till you get booted and I'll invite you back in.
Yeah. I'm gonna take a piss break when that happens. So we're good for 5 minutes.
Okay, yeah. We'll do a bit of a music thing at that point. So I do want to bring it to the 2000 Mules documentary. I'll throw up that trailer there just to get going, and I'll say a few things before we get into it about it. So this documentary, I think it did a pretty good job in showing how the election was stolen, because before, when I looked into it, I watched the Mike Lindell documentary, the My Pillow guy, and I didn't quite get how it all worked. I think basically the crux of it is at one point on his big screen, his InfoWars huge type screen, he showed all these IP addresses or something along those lines, and then he showed like a bunch of lines where he's like, this is where China overtook and overturned all these votes here. And then the average viewer couldn't really do anything but go like, okay, yeah, sure. And then they had some expert that he brought in to like validate what he was saying. And, it could have been true. It might be true. I don't know. But either way, it was not very apparent to the average viewer what was actually going on. It didn't have the hallmarks of something that was understandable within layman's terms. That this is how they did it, and it is undeniable to anybody watching that this is what happened, this is how they cheated, this happened, and then there you go. You have the fraud right in front of you. It's impossible to see unless you have... it's impossible to not see unless you have, like, fucking 70 IQ, or you have liberal derangement syndrome where you don't believe in anything that's coming from a source that you don't like, right? So when I watched this My Pillow Guys documentary, the Mike Lindell election fraud documentary, it didn't really drive it home to me. I know that the election was stolen, or at least like I'm 90% sure. Like all the circumstantial evidence is there. And the circumstantial evidence of Joe Biden himself being the presidential candidate that won, I think that speaks for itself. Like you have a literal dementia-ridden guy who's almost shitting himself, I guess. And he's been propped up. Nobody's hyped up about this guy other than he's against Trump. And all these people don't like Trump. But there's no way that he would have won fair and square. So I'm of that mind. But we're about to get into this documentary. There's a lot of good things to say about it. And we're going to take a musical break here. And we'll be right back and we'll get into that. So stay tuned for that. And we're back. I think that YouTube took that down as well with my stream is suspended for policy violations, but I think it will come back, if I'm not mistaken. Hold on.
We have put together.
All right. I should still be live on Entropy. Yes, okay. There we go. I'm still here. Entropy it is. Yeah, good to see you, Tofu TV. Great interview with James Top yesterday. I'm liking your show, man. Good shit. Good stuff. Great production value and some hot takes there. I'm still suspended on YouTube, so maybe I'll wait it out another second or two. Okay, we're back. I think. Fuck. All right. I think we're good enough. We're at least live on Entropy, and The Refused keeps taking down my stream. I really like that band, so I keep playing their songs for breaks and for intros, but apparently they don't like me doing that on their stream, or at least their record company doesn't, but who cares? Fuck it. Let's go. I want to get into this 2000 Mules trailer. It's a great documentary. It really finally opened my eyes to something tangible that we could say, that we could easily prove happened during the 2020 election. And at least throw it in their faces that they were banning us for this kind of thing when it happened. So, I like that at least.
We have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics. Let me say it again.
The 2020 election was the most secure
Election in American history.
So I love how they say that all these news pundits are saying it was the most secure election in election history or whatever. It sounds just like that Sinclair Group video where each news pundit from all the different stations or from all the different companies and their subsidiaries like Fox, NBC, ABC, whatever else, they all had the exact same script. And likewise with this, that the 2020 election was the most secure election in election history or whatever. It all is just the same wording, the same script. So, when you know a lie is happening in the mainstream media, which is basically everything they say is a lie, but you know there's a very particular and very deliberate lie when they all have the same script. I mean, they can't even bother to change a few words.
Let me begin by asking a very simple question. Do we know the truth about what really happened in the 2020 election?
I think millions of Americans.
I love this. They have all the conservative mainstream stars all in there together because they need them all in there to give it that legitimacy. Because as conservatives, they're so like beaten down and downtrodden that they need all the big shots in there to cast their doubts on what they're about to see. Like, ooh, I just observed the facts, so I'm an agnostic, as you'll see. Like, they're coming from a very weak point, but trying to project power in a different way, which in some sense it kind of works, but in another sense it looks kind of weak and neutered.
Americans know something went wrong, and they have little pieces, and no one's really put it together.
I'm agnostic on this question, and I am awaiting more information.
Always the internal awaiting information.
I believed the president were a Nazi, I might steal an election.
Bold accusations require bold evidence, and they haven't seen it.
We have been working on something big.
Show me the money.
Can we meet? I've been working with Greg Phillips. He has a deep background in election intelligence.
True the Vote has the largest store of election intelligence for the 2020 elections in the world. No one has more data than we do. We identified in Atlanta 242 mules that went to an average.
I love this. The cell phone geo-tracking data. Now, this is going to be a big thing going into the future. Like, the FBI, NSA, of course, CSIS over here in Canada is using it. But this is going to be a huge thing going forward into the future. With January 6th, with even the Black Lives Matter rioting, with the Kyle Rittenhouse specific riots, they had geolocation, geofencing information about all the people that were in that area. For January 6th, I know in this documentary they talk about how people were arrested and charged just like a day or two after January 6th because they were obviously being followed with their cell phone data and identified through their cell phone data by people who were following them in the government or NSA or wherever else, the FBI. So they are also going to make a thing about this on the right wing. With Ben Shapiro, when he was reacting to this, he immediately delved into his IP plug, his IP company sponsor, in order to protect people's identities from this kind of thing happening. You know, it's almost like it's another call to be scared about something, and it's something you should be scared about, and you should be worried and you know, protect yourself at least against, so you're not worried. But it's also great for fear mongering. Like, you'll always be watched, so don't step out of line.
Of 24 drop boxes, but Philadelphia alone, we've identified more than 1,100 mules.
What is a mule?
Person picking up ballots and running them to the drop boxes.
This is not grandma out walking her dog. Bad backgrounds, bad reputations. They are interested in one thing, that's money.
It's the Mexican mafia.
In no shape, in no way, in no time is that legal.
This is organized crime.
Do you have video evidence?
4 million minutes of surveillance video around the country.
What you're about to see is disturbing.
So this is 1 o'clock.
Look at Dennis Prager,
what you're about
man.
to see is
Are you there, my co-host?
Yeah, I'm back, baby.
Okay, you're back just in time to laugh at Dennis Prager.
Yeah, this fucking guy.
Take a look at this guy's gut, his gaping mouth, and like just him being skeptical. He's like, that's a lot of information, but I'm still skeptical. It's just me. I'm so measured in my response. You know, I wouldn't want to make the Jews angry that fund me. Okay, Dennis Prager. Fuck. You know, maybe Larry Elder, your conservative token on the side, can be the counter opinion to you, who's a bit more zealous, and you could get away with it because he could get away with it because he's not white like you are. But oh my goodness.
disturbing.
So this is 1 o'clock.
Disturbing.
So this is 1 o'clock in the.
To see is disturbing.
What is wrong with it?
Disturbing.
So this is 1 o'clock in the morning.
Don't we all vote at 1 o'clock in the morning?
On one night, this person, this mule, went across 6 counties to 27 different drop boxes.
I call it the Mexican mafia, seriously.
There we go. It's the Mexican mafia. Okay, so when I was watching this movie, I was trying to figure out, okay, so what's the grift, right? Like, they're harvesting ballots, what does that mean? And then I figured out, finally, after looking into it and hearing, like, a bit more of the documentary, is that they have some kind of mafia of the NGOs that are like, oh, that are trying to encourage minorities to vote, obviously, right? Because they don't give a fuck. So they get these groups of people, and clearly here it's some kind of Mexican mafia where they get them to go to old people's places and just around in general to give people their ballots or to fill them out, and then they just go and take them from random people. Or they find people to, like, there's multiple facets of it. Like, they find people who have a list of voters who are likely not going to vote. So that could be anything from, like, old people in nursing homes. So you have, like, La Raza Mexicana nurses going and forcing old people to vote and put in their information on these ballots that would otherwise be absentee. Or you have people who are going to old people's homes, or people who are otherwise not savvy to these kinds of grifts, and getting their information, their votes, and taking them in. They could get them to fill it out, and then they could check mark whatever they want after them, as long as these people don't know what's going on. And they could just take people's ballots who they think aren't going to vote, like they haven't voted in the last 2 elections. There's 1,000,001 ways that they could do this. And then they go and they harvest these ballots into these NGOs, and then all these mules go out and deliver them.
Because they work like that.
This is jaw-dropping. What you showed is frightening.
It's just...
Is it frightening?
This is
okay, Mr. Fragger, what if we, instead of the Mexican mafia, we had the Aryan mafia harvesting Republican and PPC votes here in Canada? What do you think about that?
Sounds pretty fucking based.
I know. Sounds pretty fucking illegal, and like me just joking about that right now is going to catch some flack. You know, I might end up on CBC's The National or The Fifth Estate, and they'll say Plaid Army Diagolon Canada First streamer wants to commit voter fraud under the guise of the Aryan Mafia. You know, if I had more clout, that is probably what would happen, right? Just me making that joke. But at the same time, the Democrats and, you know, the literal Mexican mafia invaders coming in through Biden's America, where they have allowed just literally all these people to come in with no actual claims of asylum, that they actually need asylum from any oppression. No, they're just coming in to rig the vote. And rig our society, rig our cultural values as well. And I don't necessarily blame them for it. I blame the people who are allowing it to happen, but there we go. Why don't we get the Aryan Mafia to start harvesting PPC ballots? Like, when that, what would you do? You would go to, like, the senior citizen center on some, like, Catholic, retirement home. And then you just gather up all their... I don't even want to get into it, because that's just going to implicate me once it happens. Once people wake up and realize that the game is rigged.
Showed is frightening.
It's just sickening to me.
Now we come to the most important question of all. Was the magnitude of vote trafficking enough to tip the balance in the 2020 presidential election?
It's not a leap to say this would have made a difference.
They have ruined Election Day in the United States of America. That's provable. And that's enough for me to fight the left with every fiber in my body.
Without free and fair elections, we are not a democracy. We are a criminal cartel masquerading as a democracy.
I love how he's talking about... They always talk about democracy in the end.
But democracy.
Yeah. So Ferryman's Toll sent a super chat on entropy. Thank you very much, Ferryman Stall. And he says, cheers, Edgy and faceless co-host. Canadians need to move to America, start businesses, and hire more Canadians to get them visas. Balkanize in the red states. And I could totally agree with that. As fucked up as we see, like, the Biden's America with all this mass illegal immigration at this point, it's still better than the lack of constitution for the First Amendment that we have here in Canada. In our, like, nice guy immigration, where we're going to be the quickest to be demographically replaced. So, just think about how quickly and how much of a smiling face they're going to put on our replacement, our impoverization, if that's a word, right?
You just made it one, buddy.
Impoverization. They're impoverizing me, bro. I'm being impoverized. Put that in the dictionary. Put that in Webster, okay? So, yeah, I think America is the best place to go for that, and then figure out where you're going to go from there if you're going to make a second destination. But at least there's states' rights there.
We just got suspended for policy violations again.
Again?
Yeah, Ferryman just threw an F in the chat.
What in the fuck? Okay, now that's oh, it's from the fucking documentary. I was gonna say, did we finally get it? Okay, we're back.
Okay, now we're back.
This is fucked, man. The DMCAs are going crazy tonight. I just wanted to laugh at Dennis Prager. We didn't need to show that. But anyways, just imagine the compounding of what I showed you before with the legal immigration and how it's skyrocketing. Like, literally multiplying the amount of migrants that are going to be allowed asylum within America per year, plus the literal Mexican mafia harvesting ballots. We don't need to get into the specifics of what was happening there because, yes, there were literally thousands of mules taking these, absentee-type ballots from NGOs. So George Soros most likely funded NGOs that are essentially criminal organizations. Rigging the vote, destroying democracy, as Dinesh Souza says there, as if there was any such thing as democracy that's happening right now. Obviously, there is no democracy. Even if this wasn't happening, there wouldn't be democracy, because we get a vote for two people, and they're both completely controlled by who gets let into that position of candidacy. At least in America, with the Roe v. Wade decision, even if that is a complete curtain that they're trying to put over the people's eyes and a distraction in order to energize the Democratic base, that leak from the Supreme Court, at least that allows the states to do something about anything that is involved with their lives and their families' lives, right? In Canada, it seems like Justin Trudeau can enact the Emergencies Act over a mere meme country based on misinformation from a hack organization like Anti-Hate, an NGO, with false information that gets laundered to other organizations that add even more falsities upon it, where it finally gets to the MPs who say it in Parliament, where it just has no coherence to reality, and that is the reason for the Emergencies Act being enacted. And then you could freeze your bank accounts. Canada is going to be the playground for, like, the nice guy New World Order, where it's just like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean we're infringing upon your rights? We just froze your bank account, even though you didn't do any of this. So there'll be, like, no violence going up towards it, but we'll still get screwed over, right?
Yeah.
That's how crazy it is, right? Because at least in America, you had Charlottesville where one person died from a heart attack after, like, kind of getting hit by a car from some alt-right spurg that had a gun pulled on him before he rammed the crowd. But no, he has like 400 years in prison now, or something insane like that. But over here in Canada, literally nothing happens, literally no violence. In fact, violence is committed upon the people in the Freedom Convoy. Like with that Antifa person who ran over those people in Winnipeg, there's no equivalency from the other side, from our side, of that happening to them. Yet we are the state of emergency. That's how it goes.
Yeah. No.
What do you think we could do? Like, it's like you have to win. The only option is winning. Bitching about it, showing their hypocrisies doesn't do anything.
We got to reproduce. We got to have tons of kids, and maybe in another generation, we'll be able to solve this problem.
So that's where the Roe v. Wade comes in, you know? We got to force these whores to have their kids. Right?
Well, the type of person that's having an abortion probably isn't going to be on our side, but
yeah, I know. It's never these things are not coming into play naturally, man. It's not good, you know.
We got to be like the Amish, though. We literally got to outbreed them. I've seen like a chart of the United States, and it's like by 2020 or by 2100, the Amish population is going to go like 5 times, you know, larger than it is today. It's like the only white population in the United States that's actually like growing rapidly. So we got to do that, you know. Just
and they did not need technology to do it.
No. Absolutely.
Well, I think it's kind of like a return to monkey, a return to primitive man. Almost like, what do you call it? What's that guy? Uncle Ted? Is that his name? Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber. It's like industrialization and its discontents or something. What's that guy's... Is this optical? Industrialization and its discontent and its okay. Industrial society and its future. Yeah, that's what it's called. But he was basically saying that technology demands this liberal technocracy that we have now, this neoliberal fascist, not fascist, but authoritarian technocracy that we have now. Because the stronger that technology, the better technology gets, you cannot have it in the wrong hands, supposedly. And the people that have power, they think everybody else but them is the wrong hands. So they will have increasingly draconian measures against the people that they don't like. Right? And then you have all these leftists, these downtrodden people, at least in their own minds mentally. They might not actually be oppressed because literally they're being propped up by the system. So they're not systemically oppressed, at least. Like their identity isn't. And then they're propped up by the system. So this is pretty much inevitable. Unless you have something very special where you have some very, like, benevolent but authoritarian figure who is able to capture all the capital and the resources and the hearts and minds of people and be able to enact the right policies that will help us going towards a technocratic future, you know, where futurism and humanism is applied in a way that actually helps people grow without demeaning their own personal freedoms, their own personal choice, their own, like, mental autonomy, and their will to procreate and self-determine, right? But I don't think that's likely to happen, because even if you had somebody benevolent like that, like, I think Elon Musk is fronting like he's that guy, right? He's pro free speech, and he's like supposedly the richest guy in the world. And he says free speech is paramount, which means freedom of conscience is paramount for how we're going to go forward into the future. But even if he is absolutely genuine with what he's saying, he will die one day, he will get pushed out of power one day, and the greedy technocrats and their claws will scratch away and grab at that power, and then we'll be doomed to this prophetic vision of doom and gloom that Uncle Ted has envisioned within his Unabomber manifesto. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're pretty much hitting the money right there.
So what about these 5G towers? I haven't heard a lot about them propping up lately, right?
Yeah, no, they've been kind of out of the news.
Right. Are they like laying low for a while? Like, oh, shit's pretty fucked right now. Let's wait till Elon Musk makes things based again for all the right-wingers, or else they're gonna fucking torch the shit out of our 5G towers. I mean, I just thought of that now, but that kind of makes sense, right?
I think all the 5G people got onto the anti-vax bandwagon, and they've kind of been railing that for the last year and a half or so. So once that dies down a little bit, I think they'll be back into the 5G.
Are the 5G towers still going up though?
I have no idea. Honestly,
I'm pretty. There's been no news. I'm so surprised now that I think about it now.
I'm pretty out of the loop on the 5G.
Yeah, what's going on with the 5G magnets, yo? Like, are they propping up everywhere? Like, that is some fast-ass internet, and that's exactly what the oligarchs are going to need in order to get their digital ID and all that shit, right? In order to make sure that white people aren't speaking to each other, right? Like, how are they going to bust the Diagolon barbecue party if they don't know exactly where everybody is at every given point? Oh, I just want to bring up the fact check for 2000 Mules, right? Because we're going to get busted for misinformation if we don't throw up the fact check. Okay? Now, we've been going on for about an hour and a half here. I think we could probably wrap it up after this fact check over here. Yeah, we got 10 minutes left on this fucking Zoom call. So,
oh, man. These Zoom bastards, they've just... Like, I've done so many of these with you, and they've never done this.
Yeah, it's a new feature for sure. I'm going to have to look into a different way to have guests on.
They want you to sign up, man. They're like, okay, your trial account is over. You can only have calls for 40 minutes.
Yeah, it's pretty fucking ridiculous. Okay, where's this fact check here? I'm going to go for the newest fact check that's on Google, okay? So I'll just type in 2000 Mules. Okay, yeah, it's the same one I looked at before. So this is the first thing that comes up when you type in the movie. Now, what are their main points to say that this is all a fraud, right? The fact checkers. Now, I have read this, and I have read PolitiFact. This is basically the same thing with more stuff added onto it. And this is the first thing in the search results. So, I think as important as knowing the information that's in the documentary, which is, you know, to me, it seems like there's enough evidence there, obviously, to warrant an investigation, but even the evidence that is presented shows that the election was basically stolen. Like, they garnered enough votes with this that they basically stole it. Or at least it should be redone. But either way, we have to look at both sides. And I think it really gets into the mind of the fact checker, the eternal fact checker, when you look at their arguments and know how to debunk them. Because then you could be clear to somebody who's on the edge, who, you know, they would come over to your side if it was properly explained to them. But everything is so polarized now that it just seems like a left-right paradigm. But you have to transcend these paradigms in their head by giving them the facts and logic. And this is something you could do in your own community. So you're not exactly powerless. You're not crying to the wind like you are when you're like, oh, they did this to us and it's so unfair. Well, no. You could talk to people in your own community and they could be cool with you. And then that's your life that you've affected. Oh, this is a perfect time to bring up this specific thing that happened. There was a guy on my Facebook. I'm not going to say the name because their thing was a private post, but they had a Diagolon flag on their property. And then some Antifa group went and put in notes in everybody's mailbox, like a list of things about Diagolon, which were all cited from the core source was anti-hate. And it was telling people in the neighborhood, in their mailboxes, not to, like, if you see this person, don't interact with them. Like, as if they're a violent criminal. Like, if you see this person, report them immediately and don't interact. As if they're like a wanted fugitive. It was absolutely insane what this person wrote. So then this person, the Diagolon, base Diagolon flag flyer, the based homeowner, wrote their own letter and put them into the neighbors' mailboxes, and then actually spoke to the neighbors. And then they were cool with them, and they had these great conversations. And when you think about what these Antifa fucks did, it's like they're absolutely spreading hate, telling people not to associate with this person, not to even talk to them, to treat them like they're fucking violent criminals upon sight. Based on what? Based on their own hateful biases that they have against them? It was absolutely insane, and this Diagolon supporter handled it 100% correctly. And what they do? They strengthened their ties with their neighbors, and they learned more about what Diagolon was. Because nobody wants to be told what to do by some fucking hysterical fucking letter like that in their mail. Especially when they have like a homeowner who's been living there for like over a decade in good standing. Like, this shit will bite them in the ass. And that is something that you could affect within your own community. And likewise, being able to disentangle the lies of fact checkers. I think that's something that you could do in your own community too. But basically, their main points were that the fact that they could geolocate them with their phones, it's not correct within a couple meters or something like that. And that is like, you have these people literally going to different, like 5 to 7 different ballot drop-off boxes and NGOs that are known to, you know, provide these ballots for ballot harvesting. And you're supposed to think that, oh, this technology is not exactly correct, even though it's used for law enforcement. And then I think what they did was they found one of the people who were involved in the actual election. Fuck, which guy was this? Yeah, there was one specific guy where they found him, and he said of one of the videos, that guy was giving in my whole family's voting, okay? So, like, you're allowed to give in multiple ballots if it's within your family. So there was one videotape that was pushed around by True the Vote, and then this one guy involved, probably with the whole Democratic scheme, was like, oh, well, he was voting on behalf of my family. Well, how do we even know that? How do we even know which ballots he threw into the mailbox, into the drop-off bin? There's absolutely no record of that. So it's just a bunch of things where they're raising the bar for evidence when you have something like Russiagate where there's literally no evidence and it's all just insinuation, and they have some anonymous source, some leak from the White House or something that cannot be revealed or ever be revealed. And then you have established liars who lied about like the Iraq war, the Afghanistan war, in order to get us into those conflicts, and they're being promoted again after they've been exposed to be liars that caused hundreds of thousands of deaths. Not directly them who caused it, but they definitely contributed to it with their propaganda. And then they're being promoted to the next level of the democratic lie schemes that are going on. Anyways, I think the takeaway from that is that they always raise the bar on the fact check, and then they straw man small points of it, and then they twist them into different things that have nothing to do with the main points. And then always the standard for getting these things actually convicted and into the legal system are so high for people who are not part of the system that actually conducts that. So they could always say, well, there's been no proof in any court or whatever else, just like with the vaccines and all that stuff. If they're not willing to look into all the data in all these pharmaceutical companies, then it'll never get past that threshold of officiality. So I think you're about to be kicked out, my sweet guest here.
I got 1 minute.
You got 1 minute left? So what do you want to say before you go about all this? And you might get cut off.
Well, everyone keep your spirits up. Went out to the Diagolon party a couple weekends ago, I guess.
Hell yeah.
Like a week ago now or something, like a week and a half ago. That was awesome, man. It was so great to be around so many like-minded people and hang out with so many cool people. So shouts out to everyone who was there, and look forward to talking to you guys next time.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on. I'm going to read a couple of the chats, and then I'm going to leave everybody out on a song. So just in the Entropy chat, it's good to see you, Trish. She asked, when did Edgy start? How much did I miss? I started at 9:15 tonight, so you missed about an hour and 20 minutes or an hour and a half. Sir Toast is saying, fun fact, after the 2000 Mules reveal, Michigan deleted 7 million of their voter rolls. Okay, so it might be doing some good then, because I've heard that also that they're going to reveal a lot more information going on in the future. So if this is the start of something, I'm pretty excited. Another thing that I think is good about this is, it's eye-rolling that they have all these conservative ink people like Charlie Kirk, Dennis Prager, that fucking creepy-ass looking boomer, Larry Elder. Like, I like Larry Elder, but, all the conservative boomers always bring him out as like, oh, but look at this black guy who's saying these things that I think, and it's a bit eye-rolling because he still keeps it within the establishment paradigm. I understand that, but the fact that they have all these guys together in solidarity to promote these claims, and then you have Ben Shapiro who's like reviewing it, is like, this is a very good this documentary seems like it has a lot of good information, but I still need to see more. So it seems like they're all working together, and at least that gives a lot of authority that the Democratic establishment cannot necessarily ignore. And I think it's going to revive legitimacy among the greater populace to Trump. And the November 2020 election will not be a complete loss like it was where, Trump lost, and it gets buried in history, all this election fraud, and especially all the anger that came out of it after, like the January 6th supposed insurrection. These people will be vindicated and hopefully released. And in the future, there will be an apprehension towards treating people like this. Treating people like they treated the January 6th prisoners. Now, that is pretty hopeful, pretty wishful thinking that the powers that be will rethink the ways that they treat their enemies, right? Because they're the ones that are in power. You can see that they have no problem killing children and promoting that as their main value, as their main fighting rallying call against the Republicans. But it's at least something that all these conservative Inc. guys are in unison supporting these claims of election fraud. Because this reminds me, I wrote this down when I thought of it because it's fucking hilarious. But remember what I said about Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy? He has this documentary that comes out where he's showing like a bunch of lists of IP addresses and a bunch of numbers, all like one after the other, and he's saying, this is where the Chinese flipped the election votes, and it all went this way and that way, and the layman cannot understand that. Yet at the same time, these conservatives are trying to be so measured in this documentary to try to get their point across as if they're not unhinged, like Mike Lindell, My Pillow guy, in his documentary, which failed. Oh yeah, Sertos is saying the $400 million that Zuck donated to the elections. Let's not forget that. That might get uncovered too, going forward, with this organized attack at the legitimacy of the election of 2020. Freeman's Toll saying, don't impoverize me, bro. It's a good word. Impoverize. It sounds like pulverize. I've been impulverized. Papa Squirrel is saying he's been saying it for a couple of years now, that Canada is the prize. Yo, well, Canada is a prime piece of real estate, and we're easy to take advantage of. You know, our big uprising, our big so-called insurrection was the trucker freedom convoy, and now people are paying the price for that, even though no violence happened from us. So imagine what will happen when violence does arise from some kind of resistance movement that is not sanctioned by the oligarchy, right? Tofu TV is saying the Industrial Revolution and its consequences have been a disaster for humanity. I think that's the sentence I was trying to get out when I was thinking of Uncle Ted. Mr. Theodore Kaczynski, who's dying from cancer in prison right now. Do not support what he was doing. I do not support what he was doing with the bombing of federal buildings, but his manifesto has some of the wisest words that I have ever read from somebody who is prophesizing the future and the state of the left-wing establishment and technocracy. Political puppet theater in the chat, and some other people are saying that yeah, they're all bought and paid for, all clown puppets. Yeah, including these Con Inc. guys. And I wonder what the long game is for that. I think it's probably a pressure release steam valve, as they called them, I think, where, you know, they have to let this go in some regards, and they have to let the people who know the truth, because there's way too many people that know the truth, And when you talk to people in your own communities, when they're not beholden to like the stranglehold of the left, where they say that you've got to report your friends in some communist snitch style kind of authoritarianism, that when you actually talk to your friends and your families and your neighbors and your communities, that they could actually feel your humanity. So they've got to have these political pundits to let you release that steam in order to keep the Overton window, to keep people within this Overton window, even if it is expanding. But at the same time, at least I can speak more truth, at least people around me could speak more truth, and we could get out of the hot spots while we still can. So, even if they are controlled opposition, as long as the message gets spread and the Overton window of acceptable opinions gets enlarged, as long as we're looking out for those good long-term victories for what we want in our lives, and we are trying to work towards those goals, and we are aware of what they might do to us after we achieve those goals, in order to avoid them shrinking this Overton window on us, in order to avoid them chokeholding us, then I think that's something good, These controlled opposition people, if we could push them more towards our direction, then that's good. Alright, I think I've read a lot of the chats now on Entropy and YouTube. Thank you, Ferryman, for that donation. I want to thank my co-host for being here with me for most of it, even though Zoom kicked him out. I'm going to play us out on a song, and I want to see if it also gets banned, because it's also by the same band, Refused. So, have a good night, everybody, and I'll see you next Tuesday, or on any of the other community streams that you guys go on. And this is another dope song by The Refused.